Hello, everyone. Good afternoon or good morning. My name is Samika Petrowski. I am the Knowledge Management Specialist filling in for Colleen Holohan today. I'm happy to be here with all of you on our July grantee call. I know this might be the first call for many of you, so we extend an additional welcome. Thank you to everyone who submitted questions prior to the call. We'll respond to all those at the end of the call, along with our open Q&A. We have a packed agenda, so let's dive in. We'll kick it off with Sonali Nijawan, the Director of AmeriCorps State and National. Sonali?
Thanks, Samika, and thank you for taking on the July call on behalf of Colleen. Welcome, everyone. It is lovely to be here with all of you in this fine month of July. I hope you all have been able to take some time with that you all were able to enjoy or get some rest during the holiday break last week. We look forward to sharing all of the information we have for you today. It is a full agenda. Thank you again to all of you who have shared questions and provided information about the work that you're doing in your local states and communities. It's been really great for us to have that information. We look forward to answering your questions and sharing additional information. So with that, I'll just stop and pass it to Samika to kick off our call and to get things moving.
Thank you, Sonali. Up first is an update from our Office of Grants Administration. We are joined by Lisa Bishop, the Director, and who is also joined by the Senior Grants Management Specialist, Bonnie Janicki. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Shamika, and happy summer, everyone. Wanted to share that we are well on our way with AmeriCorps State National grant making this year in concert with our ORO and budget colleagues. I think in hindsight, we had probably too ambitious a timeline to get all of the awards out, but we are definitely focusing on awards based on start dates at this point. So there's also been some examples where grantees have asked for applications to get returned for various reasons, and we're trying to fix everything pre-award rather than have to do amendments later. So we are well on our way with our ASN grant making this year, and appreciate everyone's patience and good thinking as we are doing some new things this year. Also, in the spirit of new things, we have reviewed all match waiver and alternative match schedule requests. We are in the process of approving them. I will say that if you haven't received approval yet, no one has been denied. So we are in some cases asking some additional follow-up information. And that's a couple of things. One is to make sure that commissions are supportive of waiver requests from their subgrantees. And then the other thing is also just to make sure that we have justification that supports the criteria in the regulations. But hopefully the streamlined process is working well for folks. We definitely would like feedback on that as well. And please keep those requests coming. Let's see. As many of you are aware, there is still a backlog across the government with the unique identifier validations through GSA. There were about 40,000 open tickets as of last week. That's definitely higher than we would like. However, they are making a big dent in those. As of Friday, we had 5 that were related to ASN grantees. So please do continue to submit your tickets to GSA and then escalate through your portfolio manager when needed so that we can also advocate on your behalf. Probably related to that, we have noticed a couple of instances where vendors have been offering paid services to our grantees to get SAM registrations. And so this happened several years ago as well. We just want to make sure that everyone knows you don't have to pay for that service. You certainly can if you want, but want to make sure that you're aware that you can do that for free through sam.gov. And then finally, this is the first year, at least in recent history, that we're doing unexpended funds for our competitive grantees. We expect that guidance will go out by the end of this week, if not sooner. I think the headlines are grantees will actually be able to carry forward funding. And so we are working on a process to streamline that as much as possible to allow maximum flexibility. One question that I want to address kind of from the onset is related to commission grants, and that is that given that the competitive subs were actually approved through a competitive process, the carry forward would remain with that specific sub-grantee. So it doesn't get rolled up to the commission level, but rather if a program is underspending, those funds would then remain with the that specific subgrantee. And Samika, I think those are our updates for this month.
Thank you, Lisa. I did want to take a moment to pause here. If anyone had any questions for Office of Grants Administration, that you can pop them in the chat, or please raise your hand and we will unmute you. So any topical questions? If not, we also have the open Q&A at the end, but we wanted to pause here and see if you had any questions for either Lisa or Bonnie. I will hold for a couple of seconds. Okay, I believe we have a question in the chat from Michael. Will the new NOFO be dropping references to DUNS numbers?
So yeah, well, the notices are will reflect the UEI requirement.
Great, sorry. And I see there was a question for, does competitive unexpended carry forward also apply to fixed awards?
Bonnie, do you want to tackle that one?
Be happy to, Lisa. Absolutely. So at this point, yes, we are allowing all competitive programs to carry forward funds.
Great, thank you, Bonnie. We are a new AmeriCorps recipient. When do awarded funds show up in PMS?
That's a great question. I'll be happy to take that one, Lisa. So if your account is already set up, then at time of award, it takes 24 hours for it to show up in PMS. And if it's not showing up, or for some reason you're having difficulty getting access, please let your PM know, and then your PM can reach out to us.
Great, thank you, Bonnie. And then there's a message of appreciation. I see one hand raised, Steve. Can you unmute Joyce, please? And Joyce, you should be have the ability to ask your question. Thank you. Joyce, are you with us? Thought I heard maybe some typing. Nope. Well, while we wait for Joyce, feel free to pop that in the chat if you're not able to ask it live. At the moment, I'm not seeing any. Oh,
just real quick, there's one about their account is set up, but they're having problems with their entering their banking information. That's something that you will need to work directly with the payment management system, because we don't that will come from them to do. So you'll definitely want to work with your the contact at payment management system.
Great, thank you for the teamwork on the chat, Bonnie. There's another question from the main commission. Is there any indication that the requirement to have a DUNS number will be dropped in favor of a SAM unique identifier, or will we be overlapping the requirements for another year?
So no, we will not be overlapping the requirements for another year. It'll definitely be the UEI.
Great, and Michael helping out in the chat. At this time, I'm not seeing any other questions or hands raised, but I'll give it a couple more seconds before we move on to our next section. Okay. I think we'll close out this portion, but if you have more questions, we can definitely answer them in the Q&A. Okay, thank you, Lisa and Bonnie. And we will move on to our next slide. I believe we were trying to get Rhonda Taylor to join. I'm just gonna do a quick call to see if she's here. I do not. Steve, can you go to the next slide and I will present? So on behalf of External Affairs, just wanted to let folks know about the upcoming days of service, specifically the 9/11 Day of Remembrance. There's some information on your screen about the upcoming webinars. Their first one is in a couple of weeks on July 22nd. We encourage you to join, and they will be sending a registration link out soon. The second webinar is in August, and we'll review AmeriCorps' tools and resources and help promote some of the 9/11 stuff via media and other messaging and recruitment for volunteers. It's important to note that this year, the Day of Service will emphasize unity through service and encourage grantees and partners to share stories on how serving on 9/11 helps create unity and understanding. I will also be popping some links in the chat for the 9/11 Day of Service and the volunteer. So some of this information may be repetitive. We're also encouraging project organizers to invite elected officials who will demonstrate the bipartisan nature of the coming together in service and volunteering. And then we finally ask that all your grantees and affiliates use one of the volunteer project tools that feed into AmeriCorps' volunteer search, and you can find that on our website. As I pop those in the chart, since I could not answer questions on the 9/11 Day of Service, please direct those to the Office of External Affairs, who will be gladly willing to help assist you with your questions. We will move on. Next, we have Tess Mason-Elder, the Acting Director of Office of Government Relations, to provide an update on engaging elected officials. Tess?
Thanks, Mika. Appreciate it. And apologies in advance if we get any background noise from where I'm located at the moment. So I'm going to give you a quick update. For those who don't know me, I'm Tess. I'm our Acting Director of Government Relations, and I wanted to share two very brief updates for you. First, on FY23 appropriations, many of you have likely seen that the House Appropriations Committee has passed the FY23 Labor HHS Appropriations Bill, which includes funding for AmeriCorps. This bill includes about $1.3 billion for the agency, a $150 million increase over last year, which is about $40 million below the president's request. This includes increases to all of our program accounts. We anticipate that the Senate will also begin working on their bills sometime this month before they break for August recess. And speaking of August recess, that's the second update I wanted to share. The Office of Government Relations is working to develop engagements for senators and members of Congress in their home districts and states during the August recess period. This includes facilitating site visits in collaboration with grantees for programs that are active during the month, also setting up roundtables, discussions, and other dialogues with members and volunteers, or participating in grant announcements or swearing-ins or other special events. So we're working closely with our regional offices and some of you on this call on some of those specific opportunities that are in the works. But we would welcome the opportunity to support you and any August recess activity you may have or be thinking about doing. So if you are working on something or want to brainstorm some ideas or have suggestions for ways we can support, I encourage you to reach out to me or my team, and we can talk through ways we can make sure your local members of Congress see some of the great service that's going on, particularly if you have programs that are active during this month or during the August month. So I'll drop our contact information in the chat for both me and the general government relations contact information. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We want to make sure people see and know the good work that you all are doing every day and that your members are making happen in their local communities. So that's it for me. Samika, I'll turn it back over to you, but I'll stick around for Q&A if there are any questions for me.
Sure. Thank you for the wonderful update, Tess. We will also pause here, just like we did previously with Lisa and Bonnie. If there's any questions specifically for Tess or the Office of Government Relations, feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you or pop them in the chat and I will help move those along. We'll pause for a few seconds as people get their questions. Okay. Tess did a wonderful job covering everything. Apparently there are no questions at this time, but again, if you think of anything later, we can hopefully address that at the end of the call during the open Q&A. So thank you, Tess. Next, I'd like to turn it over to my ASN colleague, Becky Davis, our Systems and Compliance Specialist, with an update about the AmeriCorps specific terms and conditions. Becky?
Thank you, Samika. Hello, everyone, and good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. I am Becky Davis, the Compliance and Systems Specialist with ASN. I am pleased to announce a change to the AmeriCorps State and National specific terms and conditions regarding active duty military hours. This change removes the 2-week barrier in which active military members can continue to earn AmeriCorps service hours and receive their member benefits while on active duty assignments. For reservists or Guard members serving more than 2 weeks of active duty in a year, a grantee may elect to provide an extension to the leave of absence period on a case-by-case basis after consultation with AmeriCorps. The agency made this change because the active duty timeframes have evolved since the policy was originally written. This change has been updated on AmeriCorps.gov. This is a perfect example of ASN getting feedback from grantees and partners via their regional offices, and that then results in policy change. We would also like to highlight Audrey Jackson from Serve, Nebraska, who raised the question to her senior portfolio manager, Patty Stengel, with the North Central region, who then submitted it to ASN via our internal ticketing system, JIRA. Audrey, your diligence to serve your members resulted in a larger conversation that engaged multiple departments at the agency, as well as the agency's subject matter experts. Thank you for your continuous commitment to making AmeriCorps a more inclusive program by working with your main point of contact in the regional office who raised it with ASN HQ staff. Thank you, and Samika, back to you.
Thank you, Becky. Moving on to something that is probably on a lot of people's mind, the 2022 symposium. You all should have received a save the date about the symposium taking place virtually from Tuesday, August 30th through Thursday, September 1st. So coming up next month. If you are new to ASN, this is a 3-day virtual event bringing together grantees, partners, and AmeriCorps leaders and staff to share best practices, learn innovative solutions, listen to engaging speakers, network with peers, and celebrate excellence in AmeriCorps award recipients, which we'll hear about next. Stay tuned for our symposium workshop proposal request coming soon via ASN information, ASN training later. This will include information on how to submit a workshop proposal for the 2022 symposium, including workshop criteria. Now I'd like to hand it over to Jasmine Harper, Special Assistant to the Director of AmeriCorps State and National, for more information about the Excellence in AmeriCorps Awards. Jasmine?
Hi, everyone. Good morning or good afternoon. My name is Jasmine Harper. I'm the newest member to AmeriCorps State and National and really excited to join the team as a special assistant to Sonali. As you know, we are preparing for the ASN Symposium, and this also includes the 2022 Excellence in AmeriCorps Awards. We have 4 awards this year: the Impactful Service Award, the Inclusive Service Award, Innovative Service Award, and the Lifetime Service Award. So while you cannot self-nominate, you are welcome to nominate your own program or another Corps member that you'd like to highlight. And an email will come out after this call to describe the awards in more detail. So you may decide the person or program that you'd like to best nominate for the category. Just keep in mind that the nominations are due Friday, July 29th at 5 p.m. Eastern Time. So more information will be coming out today. I know the team and I are really excited to hear your service success stories. So thank you all so much for your time. Back to you, Samika.
Thank you, Jasmine. And we'd like to welcome her. This is Jasmine's second week and already debuting on a grantee call. So welcome, Jasmine. Before we move into our pre-submitted questions, we'd like to make another sharing plug. So if we can move forward in the slides. We'd like to thank Serve Idaho for replying to our call for information on programs providing additional member benefits. They shared information about the Palouse Clearwater Environmental Institute AmeriCorps program in Moscow, Idaho, which has a professional development fund for members. The fund allows for their members to take up a certain dollar amount of classes that the member is interested in to boost their resume or future career. Thanks, Serve Idaho, for sharing. We'd also like to continue to make this plug if any other grantees would like to submit information on this particular topic, or if your state has worked to waive taxes on the Siegel Education Award, please email us with this information at asntraining@cns.gov. Now we'll move into our pre-submitted questions and we will read through those. Next slide. The first question is, since ARP match replacement is reported as part of the recipient share on the eGrants FFR, the CNCS share on the FFR will no longer match the amount drawn from the PMS, which would include both the regular CNCS share and the ARP match replacement drawn. Does the agency have a method to show this reconciliation at closeout, since the current closeout guidance says that the two must reconcile? I believe I'm going to turn it over to Lisa Bishop for a response.
Thanks, Tamika. Yes, great question. For all of ASN grants with match replacement, after the final FFR is submitted and reviewed by the portfolio manager, OGA will actually adjust the FFR at the time of closeout. It's already in our staff guidance about how to handle this, but in short, will basically reduce the grantee share to coincide with the amount that's undrawn in the payment management system. So thank you for the great question.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Our next question is question about administrative review process. Our commission has followed the instructions provided by ASN to submit administrative reviews. As I write this question for the monthly call, I have not had any response from the ASN administrative review inbox email for about 4 weeks. Can you confirm the timeline and any process through the process to requests to be reviewed and a decision communicated to grantees? I'd like to turn it over to Jennifer Bastress-Tomasevi for a response.
Good morning or good afternoon. I want to thank people for the question. We had previously been much more timely prior to some ASN staff departures related to the administrative review. So I want to start with an apology. I want to provide a timeline, which is all administrative review emails that we've received will receive a response no later than Friday of this week. And that said, we are going to be moving to streamlining our process. I think it's one of those processes that we've had that is ripe for streamlining and cutting out some additional steps that we have in there to allow grantees to communicate directly with the trust and where needed to involve ORO staff. But the majority of the things that come into us, frankly, we're just cutting and pasting what you all have said. And so I think there's questionable value add to headquarter and regional staff being involved in a process, and anything that can remove steps and be more timely is something that we're invested in. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll be able to talk through that process next month. But again, for everybody who has an outstanding administrative review email, those will all be responded to no later than Friday of this week. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our third and final question pre-submitted to the call. We are working on our plan to commit ARP formula funds and New York State. The current end date for our notice of grant award is 9/6/24. We heard in several phone calls with AmeriCorps that you expect the funds to be alive for an extra year. As the plan is to approve no cost extensions. Will the restrictions on enrolling AmeriCorps members during NCE period hold for this funding? I think we're turning it back over to Lisa for a response.
Yeah, thank you, Samika. Another great question, which acknowledges that ARP prime grants are 3 years and our ARP funds are available for 4 years. And then per our legislation, of course, ASN can only make 3-year grants. And so we're actually trying to figure out now what the scope of this issue is, how many commissions are impacted. We know a lot of folks have already spent have already moved all of their placeholder funds to one of their other prime grants. So we want to see how big of an impact this really is. And actually, while we're still reviewing the data, we'd like to actually figure out and get input from all of you. We have 2 options that we're pursuing right now. Both have pros and cons. The first one would be that we would grant a 1-year no cost extension on the ARP formula prime. This is, as a reminder, no cost extensions are for not for new activities. They're only for continuation of existing activities. So this would only work for programs that want to enroll members if a commission has FY 2023 cost reimbursement and fixed primes that will have active enrollment periods, which would probably be the last 30 to 60 days of that 365-day enrollment period. This gives us pause because it seems like it's a lot of ifs for it to be a viable option for the majority of our state commissions that find themselves with ARP formula funds going into FY 2024. So the other option that we're considering is de-obligating the remaining funds on the existing ARP formula grants at the end of FY 2023, and then award a new one-year ARP formula prime to cover FY 2024. We think this is the cleanest option, but would require work on both our part and the part of state commissions, and will result in 2 sets of reports for ARP formula. So Samika, I don't know if we have time today to get people's feedback or if we want to do this on a future call.
We are almost through the agenda and we're halfway through the hour. So I believe we have some extra time if you need some.
Terrific. I think we're very interested in hearing from state commissions on these 2 options. Any initial reactions?
And if you would like to, feel free to pop it in the chat, or if you would like to be speak live, I believe we have Beth has her hand raised. Steve, can you unmute Beth? Beth, you should be able to speak.
This is Beth Taylor. Thanks so much, Lisa. I think that, that was my question originally, and I just want to know, I'm all for cleaner and easier options, but also we want the ability to enroll AmeriCorps members in that 3rd year. So if option 2 allows for that to happen, then I think that I would support that option.
Thanks, Beth. I think that gets around not being able to do new activities during a no-cost extension.
Super. Thank you.
Okay. Oh. I also believe Crystal has her hand raised. If we can go ahead and unmute her for comments. Crystal, you should have the ability to provide your feedback. Crystal, if you have the option for feedback, you are currently muted. Okay. Well, there seems to be additional feedback that we can take from the chat. Thank you for putting that in. Lisa, was there anything else, or are we free to move on to open Q&A?
Let's move on, Samika.
Okay, great. Thank you, Lisa. Okay, now we'll be moving into our open Q&A. But before we jump in, please remember that we have reserved this space more for questions and clarifications. Feedback, unless requested, like you just saw from Lisa, should be sent to the appropriate communication channels or in other methods. Please raise your hand to be unmuted. We do prioritize hand raised questions over chat questions, but the chat is available for those who cannot use audio, so feel free to pop those in. And all the questions should be somewhat related to the content that we have shared. I did want to address, I did see some questions about days of service. Since Rhonda could not be here, we'll make sure that we get answers to some of your questions related to that content in the follow-up email to this call later this week. Also, if you have any questions that I might have missed further up in the chat, feel free to pop them back in again. I'm a one-woman show over here, so I'm only human. So if I missed it, please let me know in the chat. I feel like the first question I see is this call intended for new grantees? This seems to be a little bit over our head, that were just recently funded. Yes, this not specifically, this call isn't just for new grantees, but kind of jumping in, this is our monthly call that we do have for all our grantees, both new and existing. But we appreciate that feedback and consider that moving forward. I will pause either for Jennifer or Sonali if there was more of a response to that question?
No, Samika, your response was exactly right. I think it's also probably a good reminder to all of us on this call about the amount of acronyms or shorthand that we use. So if you are a new grantee, welcome. We're glad that you are a part of the AmeriCorps family. If you have questions about things that have happened, please reach out to your portfolio manager or your senior portfolio manager related to answering questions, and we will redouble our efforts to speak in complete sentences and without additional shorthand.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. We are going to move over to hands raised. Steve, can you go ahead and start unmuting folks in queue? Thank you.
Samika, as we're unmuting, there was a question earlier regarding the unexpended funds. Do you mind if I just jump in real quick on that one?
Sure. Thanks, Bonnie.
So the question was if the competitive unexpended funds is a all or nothing, whether or not they can, if it's just for some programs, or will they have to do 100%? And so what we're going to ask is you let us know which subs you want to carry forward funds for our commissions, and for your national directors who you want to carry forward funds. It is not an all or nothing. You may carry forward specific subs, and that you do not have to do it for all of them.
Samika, I'm also happy to answer the question from the gentleman from Missouri. So the question is, recognizing that VGF is the Volunteer Generation Fund, is no longer with ASN, that is AmeriCorps State and National. I would like more information on the Volunteer Generation Fund process. Michael Smith, who is our CEO, stated at 2 White House events last week that the Volunteer Generation Fund, ARP, which is the American Rescue Plan, will be granting to nonprofits, and the NOFO, which is Notice of Funding Opportunity, NOFO, will be coming out this week. This is a major change, as the Volunteer Generation Grant has been for commissions, and that is state service commissions only until this point. And it is not clear whether we can even apply anymore based on the comments last week. Can commissions apply? When will the Notice of Funding Opportunity be coming out? And how does the Corporation for National and Community Service, which is our agency, which is doing business as AmeriCorps, plan to handle this increased grant load, even in a time of staffing concerns, since states are no longer planning on administrating, sorry, I can't read. Since states are will no longer be administering all the sub-grants for you. So absolutely correct that AmeriCorps State National is no longer the lead on the Volunteer Generation Fund. I do want to be clear that my understanding is the Volunteer Generation Fund ARP grants will be open to nonprofits and to state commissions. As many of you know, some of the state commissions are nonprofits. When will it be coming out? I would defer to what our CEO said, which I believe is this week, but I'm not. Stay tuned, it's coming soon. I will pass on the question about planning to handle increased grant load to the Chief of Program Operations immediate office, which is where the Volunteer Generation Fund is located. Just in answering this question, I'm realizing how challenging it must be for new grantees, so apologies.
Great. Thank you, Jennifer. Like I said, we are going to prioritize the hand raise. Thank you for your patience, folks waiting in queue. Jeannie, I believe your phone or mic is unmuted, and if I said your name wrong, I deeply apologize.
Oh, this is Jeannie, and you said it perfect, but my question was the one about unexpended being able to accept 100% or decline 100% or having it, so it was already answered.
Excellent. Thank you, and we'll move on. believe Rowena, you are unmuted and may ask your question.
Thank you, Samika. Just one or two parts of this question. First to Jennifer. Jen, were you saying that since the VGF will be open to nonprofits, were you also hinting that only state commissions that are nonprofits would be eligible?
No,
Oh.
it is open to all state commissions. A small subset of state commissions are nonprofits, and it is open to nonprofits that are not state commissions. So I think, as some of you may recall, the agency has always said, as was the intent of the legislation, that if we got significant volunteer generation funds, that we would open it up as intended, which was not just to state commissions, but to all organizations, because the ARP funds, the American Recovery Plan monies for the Volunteer Generation Fund were so significant. The agency has made good on what it has always said it would do, which was to make it open to more than just state commissions. But state commissions are also a very valued applicant pool for the agency.
Okay, and Jennifer, could you say a few words to illuminate the National Partnership for School Success and how that will be tied in? Is that going to be an integral part of the VGF NOFO? Is it separate?
Sure. No, it's part of the NOFO. And so the way that the agency is participating in the school success initiative from the Biden administration is that it will be a priority within the Volunteer Generation Fund Notice of Funding Opportunity.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer and Rowena. Scott, you are unmuted and may ask your question.
I prefer to be referred to as the gentleman from Missouri from now on. Thank you very much. I do have, believe it or not, a question that was related to what was on the call. So for days of service, you mentioned linking up opportunities to the main volunteer portal that is on the AmeriCorps website. Is there any work in place? I know you worked with Volunteer Match on this quite a bit, but is there any work in place with Galaxy Digital with the Get Connected platform? Reason why I ask is several commissions, including us, use Get Connected, and a lot of United Ways as well too. And so there's a lot of opportunities out there that are not feeding into the AmeriCorps system right now. For example, Missouri has 16,000 right now. So it'd be great to get that fed in as well. And to the VGF point, just to poke the bear a little bit more, yes, the plan was always to increase out to competitive for VGF if and when there was enough money for formula to all the states. So we kind of skipped that step. That's all I got.
Gentleman from Missouri, we can absolutely pass on your feedback to the Days of Service team. I'm sure they likely already know about that resource, but we can let them know. I would add that the point you raised about formula to all of the states was maybe a goal that state commissions have. I don't know that that was expressly a goal of the agency, but regardless, here we are. We have a competitive process that will be kicking off, and I have no reason to believe that state commissions will not be competitive along with anybody else who is interested in applying. State commissions have the benefit of years worth of experience running volunteer generation grants.
Thanks, Jennifer. I believe, Jacqueline, do you still have your hand raised? I lost my little box, but.
I do, yeah, when I got unmuted.
Okay. Thank you, Jacqueline. You may ask your question.
Okay, this question is for Lisa about unexpended funds. Since the carry forward will be allowed at the individual program level and not at the commission level where we can pool, is it correct then that both the sub-grantee would need to be in a continuation year and our prime grant would need to be in a continuation year to have carry forward available to somebody?
Yeah, that's correct. It would have to be in a continuation year.
Okay. I know that this is not the form for feedback, but I'll just say, it does make it a little challenging to implement this in a fair way at the commission level, because that would really only apply to generally a third of our grantees at the competitive level. And so, I don't know, just kind of throwing it out there. I would love an opportunity to kind of workshop what this could look like more at some point, so that it's more equitably available to our programs.
That sounds great. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I would also add to that one of the things that, we are doing the ability to carry forward. I do want to really say that the agency's expectation and hope, and we probably want to spend more time workshopping this topic, which is that people spend their funding within the 3 years that they have it, and that people are on track to spend. So that's also something that I would want to include in the conversation.
Thank you, Bonnie and Jennifer. I was just gonna say there are no questions hand raised, but well, no, it went away. So currently there are no hands raised. There was a question that was in the mix. Someone would like to know, when might guidance come on competitive unexpended? Lisa or Bonnie?
Samika, we're hoping to get that out by the end of the week.
Oh, okay, great. That was already answered as well. Thank
But if we
you.
need to workshop, it might take longer.
Great. I am not seeing any additional question. Oh, no, hand raised. Jeannie, are you there?
Yes, I am here. And
Okay, I saw your hand and then it went away and it's back. So
yes,
may
follow
go
up
ahead and
on
ask
the-
your question.
to follow up on the competitive unexpended funding, is there any chance that the cost per MSY could be raised to match the formula cost per MSY and Public Health Corps? That would help us expend our funding and not have the problem of future unexpended funding?
We'll look into it. I'm not certain, but we'll definitely look into it before we send out the guidance.
Because we have, for workshopping, of course, as you know, us commissions would have lots of suggestions on how to make the funding more flexible so we could expend it. If I would be available for the workshop.
Okay, great. Okay, I'm not currently seeing any additional questions, seeing a lot of great comments in the chat that we will read and consider. Thank you everyone for their feedback. Not seeing any hands raised, but we'll give it a couple more seconds. If anybody has any additional questions for any of our panelists or the ASN team. Okay. There is a question from Mary Alice. How are you handling PHA this year? Separate or no competition? Jennifer Sinali, would you like to address that question?
Sure. PHA is Public Health AmeriCorps, which is an initiative that AmeriCorps State and National runs to get AmeriCorps members in the space related to public health. We will be running, it will be a separate NOFO happening at the same time as the regular competitive process. So we will both be running a continuation process for people that were organizations that were funded this year, as well as putting out a new request for new applicants for a 2-year grant.
Thank you, Jennifer. Seeing there's a hand raised for Katie. Katie, you may go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thank you. Just following up on what Jennifer said, could you clarify if applicants are applying directly to the agency this year, or if there will be an opportunity for them to apply to commissions like the competitive process?
Thank you for your question. Obviously a hot topic. I am going to respectfully decline to answer that so that I follow the rules that I may have already violated in my last answer related to not providing this group information that's not yet publicly available. So that question will be answered when the NOFO, the Notice of Funding Opportunity, is released. And rest assured that for the new competition that we understood the feedback that everybody provided, as well as the feedback we gave ourselves.
Thank you both, Katie and Jennifer. There's a question in the chat. Last grantee call in June, we presented an opportunity for additional funding called America the Beautiful grants. And Sarah would like to know, does that count as match for AmeriCorps? Lisa or Bonnie?
Samika, I don't know offhand. We can certainly look into that. Bonnie, I don't know if you know.
So, you know, in general, minus the match replacement, you cannot match other funds with other funds. So but we need to look into it. Other corporation funds, excuse me, AmeriCorps funds with other AmeriCorps funds. So we'll double check.
Okay, great. And we'll try to, if a response is available by the time we send out the notes, we'll be sure to address that for you. Next question, do you expect the CDC relationship to be longer term or time limited? In other words, trying to gauge how aggressive to be in developing PHA applicants. Thank you, Mary Ellis. Jennifer Sonali, would you like to provide a response?
Well, I would, I will be unresponsive to the direct question because I am not the person managing the relationship. That would be our Public Health AmeriCorps Director, AJ Perlman, who has a strong relationship with the CDC. I guess I would answer the second part is there are public health issues in communities right now. I would not sleep on that. And we would welcome grantee applicants coming in that focus on public health, regardless of what shape the CDC partnership continues, although it's quite strong right now.
Thank you, Jennifer. I see Sarah has her hand raised. If we can go ahead and unmute her. Sarah, I know your question was about the match, but this might be a different question.
Hello, everyone.
Hello.
Awesome, coming through from Helena, Montana. These are always such amazing calls. I just want to clarify, I'm looking at America the Beautiful. You guys had some folks on last month for that call, for the briefing call for that stream of funding. Those are Department of Interior, Fish and Wildlife. It's a whole pool of federal funders who have come together. They've prioritized the 21st Century Service Corps. We've got an interested partner, and I've emailed JBT. I'm tracking you down. Is there any way that we could get a note on this America the Beautiful streams of federal funding serving as match for CNCS funds? I heard the answer I got just a couple of minutes ago made it sound like it was AmeriCorps. I'm clarifying that's not the question or the stream of funding, but I just want to make sure. JBT, I would beg you or anyone else on the ASN information to give me an email back as well. If those count as match, there's a lot of money on the table.
Yep, we can definitely follow up. That's actually outside of both Bonnie and our department. We will follow up with the partnership team about this. It is a reasonable request and makes total sense that they would be on the top of the agency's list around getting letters. So that makes total sense.
Thanks for that. I'm going off the 2011 letter and it feels a little mushy. So I was trying to get something more firm. Appreciate it. And hello, everyone. Thanks again.
Thank you, Sarah. And as somebody who manages that inbox, I did see your email and had forwarded on, and we're working behind the scenes. So we didn't forget about you. Thank you for your email and for your questions on the call. Not seeing any hands raised. We have a couple more minutes for a few more questions, so we'll try to get them through the chat. This question is from Megan. We just had an alternative MAT schedule approved for a sub-grantee. Does the alternative schedule last the duration of the program, or will the program need to reapply in recompete years? Bonnie or Lisa for a response?
Yeah, it's the match schedule, so it should last for the length of the program.
Great, thank you. Some feedback on getting out formula notice of grants awards. So we'll take that in. Thank you, Kathleen. Question, comment from Mary Alice. Just some clarifying about what was said about reconciling PMS and eGrants FFR. That didn't totally make sense. If there's more to this question, or if Lisa or Bonnie, you could clarify, or.
Sure. So the question was about the plan for closeout and how we're going to make sure that it reconciles at closeout. So what we will do when the final FFR has been submitted and reviewed, the Office of Grant Administration will look at the amount that was reported as expended on the final FFR, and then we will go over to the payment management system and look at what was drawn, and then we will take that and consider that the amount of match replacement that was expended, and then adjust your FFR for you, and we will make a note in the comment section that we are adjusting the FFR based on that dollar amount.
Great. Thank you, Bonnie, and thanks for always holding us accountable for clarity purposes. It's always good to make sure we're all on the same page. I see Mary Alice, your hand is actually raised, so maybe you would like to clarify further about your question, but we can go ahead and unmute you, and you will probably be our last question of the call before we wrap up.
It's a request.
Okay.
Because we also have to satisfy state auditors, and whose processes they're not familiar with your administrative approaches to things. So if that could somewhere appear in a memo that just says FYI, and for your auditors, here's how we'll close this out, then I've got something in hand when state auditors come through.
Sure, that makes sense.
Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. I see there's a little bit more feedback about documenting our processes if they're not so already, so we appreciate that feedback as well. I'm going to turn it back over to Sonali for our closeout. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sumika, for hosting this month's call. It has been lovely to have dialogue and to be able to engage with all of you. To our Public Health AmeriCorps grantees, you all are part of the AmeriCorps State and National community, and that is those are the folks represented on this call. So we're excited to have you. We know that this is a lot of information, a lot to take in as new grantees of the agency. So should you have any questions, please do follow up and feel free to connect with your portfolio managers. They are also aware and have this information and will do their best to support and serve you with any questions or clarification that you might need. Again, thank you all for your questions. Thank you for your time today. We wish you all the best for the rest of this month and look forward to connecting with you on our grantee call next month. So please do send us some highlights like the one that was shared today from Idaho, and then please also do send in your questions when we put out the request. We really do appreciate it and appreciate all of you. All the best. Take care.